as a business, is there a better return on your investment from an apprentice compared to a graduate?
I wouldn't want to compare that way.
Okay,
No,
that's fine.
I wouldn't want to compare that way, because I think every whatever choice young people make in order to get to their career, goal eventually is up to them. But as an employer, I know, because if we start comparing it that way, we'll probably end up just hiring apprentices and not hire graduates. But we want to make sure graduates have put in the work. They've been full-time studies, for 3 or 4 years, depending on which pathway they choose. And apprentices, from my own perspective as a company, I think apprentices for us is valuable, because like I explained earlier, you're already equipping them with all the tools they need to be part of the company. But when a graduate comes in, even though it's after 3 years or 4 years of degree of studying, you're going to have to spend time to onboard them and get them up to speed. Whereby an apprentice who is probably 2 or 3 years into their degree pathway have already surpassed a graduate at that stage. So if you put it into those two perspectives, you can say maybe apprenticeship is much more value, but every pathway has its own benefits at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Trying to be political here.
No. I was talking to a very large organization recently, and they said that they had stopped their graduate intake because apprentices have been so powerful, both for bringing in new people, young people, but also bringing in people who are career changers.
Yeah.
Because for someone to get into that organization, if they just had graduate positions, that person would need to go and get a degree, maybe much like you had to do, Esther, and then prove themselves that they got that degree to get the job as a graduate. But the company has said they're maybe bringing in 40 or 50 per year.
Yeah.
And they're saying, we just want to keep the door as open as possible. And they've had people, actually, they have a lady who's a grandmother who's just has become an apprentice. So the other end of the spectrum. And if they just maybe had that graduate intake. But anyway, I know that's unusual for a company to make a complete shift. But I'm always interested to understand how the company thinks about those different pathways.
Their thinking, is actually quite valid. But at the same time, we don't want to shut down graduate pathway.
Yeah.
We still want to keep it open and give everybody equal opportunity, whatever path you decide.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You mentioned about some of the costs of bringing in an apprentice in terms of onboarding them, etc., and their salary and all of that, because it's a job. But mentoring can be something which employers would say, oh, actually, we don't have the capacity to mentor an apprentice. But tell us a bit about what your experience has been like.
Yeah, mentoring is one thing. I think that is something that would be number one thing to think about first, before we even think about costs, because when you think about the time it would take another engineer, let's say another senior mid-level engineer to onboard or mentor an apprentice, when you think about all of that, you wonder, in terms of the corporate goal and objectives, does this actually align with what we're aiming for, or how is it going to affect us? So you need to think about the resources. If you don't have the manpower to, mentor and give time to those apprentices, I think you'll be doing them a disfavor kind of. So you need to make sure you have the people there to mentor, guide them, and get them to where they need to be, in their career. And that should be the first thing every company should think about, first of all, before we even bring in the idea of the cost of getting the apprentice into the company.
Is it quite similar in terms of the responsibility of that mentor to a graduate coming in, or is it more onerous? Is it less onerous? Is it about the same?
I think that's where, when it comes to graduates, it wouldn't. I don't think it would require the same amount of time you give a mentor would give a graduate, to be given to an apprentice as well, because apprentices will be coming in straight out, most of them will be coming in straight out of secondary school, and they've got no, I don't want to say they've got no maturity, because they are mature if they're going into work, but, being in university exposes you to more other things than, coming in as an apprentice. So they're going to need more time to get them into that idea of this is you now working and learning. And, sometimes young people can take their time getting up to the idea of being in work. And that also takes some time because and the ability for them to grasp things as well, not having done some studying in relation to the role can be a bit of a setback. But I think with a great mentor in hand, it should be okay to get them up to speed. But it will take more time with an apprentice getting them onboarded or getting them mentored than you'd give to a graduate, because a graduate knows every bit of software principles and so they can deal with it much faster.
Yeah. Do you find that apprentices are better placed for work in that they're still used to the routine? If they've come from school, that they're still used to the routine of going to school, compared to a graduate who has come out, has maybe had 10 or 12 hours of lectures per week, maybe more of a social life.
Yeah.
Do you notice any differences in that sense, or not really?
Not from experience, no. I think once someone decides to be an apprentice, they know what it entails. They know this is technically full-time work with a day at uni, and they know what they're getting themselves into, and they are very equipped to go straight into the work life, and they're happy to do that. And well, most of them would be when I say so most of them would be. And but when it comes to a graduate might be used to the freedom of going to lecture, and some of them, if they wish to or not, but they and being more involved socially as well. So work isn't something they would have experienced if their degree did not include a placement year, or and unless they've experienced that in their placement year, they wouldn't know what to expect when it comes to work. But if it's a straight 3-year degree, it might kind of like not prepare them enough for the world of work. But the hope is that every young person who has done a degree would know what to expect afterwards, and get straight into the work life. Working is not easy. It's never easy. I'm sure a lot of people would attest to. Even a lot of our young people who go into apprenticeship or even degree pathway as a university graduate would be working anyway. Many of them would be doing evening jobs and things like that prior to the pathway they've chosen. Yeah. So I think. Maybe I'm doing them a disservice by saying they might not be well equipped, but I think they would be if they've been involved in work prior to finishing school.
Yeah, and if we've if we've any parents or young people or teachers listening, so you're saying there about those who have done work, had some sort of evening job or hospitality, working as a census worker, even when you're 17 or whatever. Is that something you're looking for whenever applicants are coming through?
A work experience.
Does that make them stand out for you?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because I think not everybody would have had the opportunity to have done some bit of work before coming in as an apprentice, or even as a graduate software engineer. Not many of them would have had that opportunity, and we as a company, we don't want to just exclude people just because of that. We give everybody equal opportunity. It's more about the impression you make during interviews and how you come across and what your aspirations are. And obviously backed up with your maybe academics and any work experience you've done, which will be a plus, but it's not necessarily
it doesn't close the door
negative
for them.
if you don't have work experience. So because we want to make it, we want to give everybody an equal opportunity as much as possible.
Okay, great. Esther, just a final question, just as we close up the podcast today. So at Workplus, we believe work is a really positive thing. It can do great things, and we've heard today about the journey you've been on. But for you, what's so good about work?
Work. Yes. What's so good about work? Work for me is an escape, kind of, if you ask me. No, work is there's, how do I put it? I'm trying to put it in a way that is going to encourage people to go into work, especially young people. Work I think, is an important aspect of my life, really, because it means I go into work knowing that I'm making a difference. I go into work knowing that when I get there, I get to interact with other people. I work with a great team of engineers who I like talking to, and the social aspect of it is great. But at the same time, it's just going into work knowing that you're producing a software that is used by so many across the UK and Ireland, and it just gives me joy to see that as part of what I do every day. And yeah, don't get me wrong, work can be work is hard work. Let's put it that way. It's never easy, and I'm sure nobody want to be delusional about that. But it's all about the positive aspects you get out of it in the end. It outweighs whatever negatives there are, and getting up every day to go to work is great.